What's up guys, I'm Chris Doughty, aka Doughtinator. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a setups video, advice, guide, tuning, whatever you want to call it. But this video we're going to talk about camber, and in GT7 it really makes a difference. But there's no telemetry, there's no tyre temperatures, there's no tyre pressures. How on earth am I supposed to set the camber to be what it needs to be? Now, it's very difficult. In this video, we're going to go through exactly what you need to know and understand to get your camber set to be right. In Gran Turismo 7, it seems the camber model is very simplified. I don't know if there's any roll centers involved. I don't know if there's any camber change. I don't know if the caster is simulated on the front, any kingpin inclination. All these different factors will play a part in what you should set your camber to in real life or in other heavy simulations. But in Gran Turismo 7 it seems much more simplified. So we're going to use the tools available to see how we can set the camber to be what it needs to be. After speaking with Bobby and Philo in the Race Asylum Discord, they suggested that you tune the camber and look at the rotational G-force, which I actually think is lateral G-force. I don't really care what the label says, but just basically the higher numbers the better. And it's measured at 40 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour and 150 miles an hour. So that gives you the low speed, mid speed and high speed. And the way the camber works seems to be more to do with the way the car rolls into the corner. So again, I think this would also tie into how you got your suspension set up. If you've got it a lot softer, you're more likely to get a lot of body roll and therefore would need to have a little bit more camber. So I went through and I graphed every single camber setting, recorded the rotational G-force, and then I created this table here. This table on screen now is for the Corvette GR3 car, and the default setting for the camber is 3 degrees front and rear. Now I changed front and rear at the same time. Maybe you can tune the car with having different front and rear cambers, but for all of these tests it was kept the same. Along the bottom of the graph is the degrees of camber that the vehicle was set to, and then on the vertical axis is the rotational G, the lateral G-force. Each line represents the different speeds, so 40 miles an hour is blue, orange is 75 miles an hour, and 150 miles an hour is the grey line. And you can see there that it starts to drop off, so that there comes a point where too much camber is too much, no matter what speed you're going. But at the lower speeds, you can see that very little camber really helps to increase the grip or the lateral G-force the car is capable of doing at the slower speeds. Now, I think there's an optimal window to be in here, looking at this data. Somewhere in the region of 0.5 degrees camber to 2 degrees camber seems to be optimal. If you want more grip at the slower speed, you want to be on the less camber, so maybe 0.5 degrees. The higher speed seems to yield the most amount of lateral G at around 2 degrees. So how does that actually translate to the way the car drives? We're going to go and run some laps in the Corvette Group 3 car. This current run is with 6 degrees camber all round, and we're at Deep Forest Raceway. It's quite an undulating track and really needs good traction. And certainly my initial feeling with the car, I've not driven the car with any other camber setting yet, but the car just feels a little bit loose. It's not really planted. It just feels a little bit on edge, and as we get on the throttle coming out of many of the slower corners, it just wants to over rotate. It doesn't really feel like there's the bite there in the corners, and even on just a moment there, just that moment on an acceleration phase of a corner where you wouldn't expect the rear to step out, it will just snap a little bit. So going through now, we need to get a good exit down the straight here now, and you just see the car just wants to move under power. So I just don't get the confidence of grip in the car. And also I noticed a lot in the braking zones that the braking just didn't seem to be that good. I was running too deep in a lot of the corners where I would have thought I was braking early enough. Again, this final corner here, it just never felt like it had the confidence or the grip to just bite into the corner. And we are revving it up, and we are spinning the wheels up in second gear on slow corner exits as well. So just the feeling of grip just wasn't there. Of course, this is not a perfect lap, and I could easily go faster. There's no doubt about that. However, it was a representative lap. So let's now change the camber. heading into the settings menu. We're just going to literally change the camber. We're going to go to 0.5 degrees camber all round. I think it's not quite the full opposite, but it's enough to make what I think is probably the optimal for certainly the slower speed corners. So we're going to put it to 0.5 degrees camber front and rear, and we're just going to repeat that test, run a few laps and see what we can do. This is genuinely my first lap on this new camber setting, and instantly I can feel the bite of the brakes in a straight line. I can feel the bite of the car going through the corners and getting on the gas. It just seems to be much more planted, much more grip in the car completely. A little bit wide through this section here, perhaps overconfident, but just the confidence in the way the car drives, the way the car sticks is immense. It's like changing from racing hard tyres to racing medium tyres. The feeling of grip was there, the feeling of safety was there, and whenever the car got a little bit out of shape, it didn't continue to over rotate. It was catchable. Coming onto the back straight now, exiting this corner, it was always very difficult to do, and we just have traction now, guys. It really is a huge step forwards. I think the region to look for with the cambers is below 3 degrees. I would highly recommend running the test that I showed earlier in the video, where you just go through and test different cambers and see what the rotational G is and aim to get that the most possible. And if you've got a slow speed track, focus on the slow speed rotational G. And if you've got a higher speed track, then focus on the high speed rotational G, and you can balance what your camber needs to be from there. I think probably you can tune your cambers front to rear if you want the car to oversteer or understeer at the higher speed or the lower speed. But here we go, guys. The lap we just set, the first lap with the camber the way it was, 1 minute 27. It's almost 2 seconds faster than my absolute best lap that I could achieve with the 6 degrees camber. To make sure it wasn't just me getting faster at the track, I went back and put the camber back to 6 degrees front and rear, and then just tested again. And immediately you can just feel the difference. Even when you're running up to the line, before you even started your flying lap, the car just doesn't want to turn. It doesn't have the grip. So I can confirm that the rotational G in the simulation of this in the setup sheet, it is a valid number. The performance points, I don't really agree with them, but the rotational G is a genuine number. It basically does give you that kind of lateral grip, lateral G, and yeah, it really makes a difference, guys. So that will hopefully go a little way to explain how to set camber in Gran Turismo 7 and what you need to do to set it. Now, I think it will be very car specific. It could also be specific on the setup that you're using. So if you soften up your suspension, you may need to adjust your camber settings to get the maximum rotational G. But I would highly recommend going through the various camber settings by 0.1 increments, front and rear together. Get a baseline for where you need to be and aim for the highest rotational G numbers. And whether you want it on the high speed or the low speed, you know where to focus for the track that you're on. I think the default camber settings for most of the cars in the game is far too much camber. I think, practically speaking, from what I've driven in a lot of the Group 3 cars, in the region of 0.5 to 2 degrees camber works really well. For the road cars, maybe you'll need more. Certainly a car that has more body roll and a lot more softer suspension, then more camber could work for you. But it's highly specific to the car that you're driving, so I'd highly recommend tuning based on rotational G. If you have found this video useful, hit that like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Also check out the link in the description below for the Race Asylum Discord. We've got a bunch of guys in the tuning section of that Race Asylum Discord that can help you get faster in Gran Turismo 7. Ask the questions, discuss with the guys in there in Race Asylum. We can help you get faster. On screen right now will be a link to another video which you may find interesting. Go and check that one out, and we'll catch you over there.